Hi, church. I hope you're doing well. In Acts 1:8, a passage we're all probably familiar with, Jesus tells the disciples, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth." Often when we think of this passage, or even hear the word witness within Christian context, we think of someone who shares their faith. We may say, I had the opportunity to witness to my neighbor or a coworker, meaning we had the opportunity to tell them about Jesus and the difference that he's made in our lives. But there are other ways the word witness is used. In a judicial context, we might be called as a witness to give testimony upon which a judgment will be made. In Acts 7, Stephen had been dragged into a court-like scene, tried before the Sanhedrin, who were, in essence, the Jewish Supreme Court. The case against him, as we discussed last time, was blasphemy. The problem for Stephen was that two of the witnesses against him were false witnesses. Since they couldn't come up with anything against him that stuck, they lied. In his own defense, Stephen flipped the script. He accused the Sanhedrin in his closing statement, "You stiff-necked people, your hearts and ears are still uncircumcised. You are just like your ancestors. You always resist the Holy Spirit. Was there ever a prophet your ancestors did not persecute? They even killed those who predicted the coming of the righteous one, and now you have betrayed and murdered him. You have received the law that was given through angels, but you have not obeyed it." So you can imagine this was not well received. When the members of the Sanhedrin heard this, they were furious. They gnashed their teeth at him. They were literally acting like animals. Now here's the clincher. Luke tells us, "But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, he looked up to heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. 'Look,' he said, 'I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God.'" And this wasn't a vision. This was real. Like Elisha's servant in 2 Kings, who all of a sudden realized they were surrounded by the horses and chariots of the Lord. Stephen's eyes were open to the reality of God's heavenly throne. The language here is important. Now, the only other people in the New Testament that use the title Son of Man to speak of Jesus is, for one, Jesus himself in the Gospels, and John twice in Revelation. Certainly nowhere else in Acts as it is here. Why does Stephen call Jesus the Son of Man instead of perhaps Lord, Messiah, or Christ? Here's another question that scholars wrestle with. Why was Jesus the Son of Man standing rather than seated at the right hand of God as Jesus said he would in Luke chapter 22? And maybe he was standing to welcome Stephen in as Stephen was about to be martyred. But when you put the details together, it sounds like Daniel 7. In my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man. Coming with the clouds, he approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. As Jesus, the Son of Man, was given all authority over heaven and earth, here in his divine authority, Jesus stands in judgment, not over Stephen, but against the temple authorities that accused him. Well, they thought Stephen was on trial. They were the ones on trial, not before the council of Sanhedrin, but before God himself. To borrow an idiom found earlier in Daniel, they had been weighed on the scales and found wanting. I think the encouragement from this passage is that things are not as they seem. If we could only see things from God's perspective. Christ has been given all authority, glory, and sovereign power. And what might feel like disaster and defeat in our lives, where the curtains pulled back, might very well be our victory and vindication for the praise of his name. May we be filled with the Spirit to trust him as Stephen did. And in doing so, respond as Christ did. Have a blessed week, church.